Over the last few years, I have talked about M.2 NVMe enclosures quite a bit, whether I'm actually reviewing some enclosures, whether I'm just talking about how useful they are, whether I'm including them in my gift guide videos, especially in the budget range. I talk about them a lot, and Acasis sent over their 10 gigabit enclosure, a very good budget option. This one, if it does well, will definitely be included in my gift guides under the $20 mark. It's a really, really good choice. We'll get to the pricing a little bit later, but let's go ahead, get this thing unboxed, talk about some specs and some features. We'll get it tested, see how it's working, and then I'll talk about some really great use cases for this as well. So this is the Acasis 10 gigabit per second M.2 NVMe enclosure. This is a tool-free enclosure, really nicely done. They have two versions of this. They have one that is only used for NVMe, and then they have one that is compatible with NVMe and SATA. So if you are interested in picking this up, make sure you grab the model that works for the drives that you're going to be using most often. A lot of people can get away with just the NVMe version, but some people may also want to use a SATA drive in here. So if you want to do that, just make sure you get the right model. This enclosure supports most of the major sizes: 2230, 2242, 2260, and 2280. Now, the enclosure is made out of an aluminum alloy shell, and there are included thermal pads to help with thermal dissipation. And it's also got a concave design that makes it really nice to easily fit in pockets in your bags and stuff without getting snagged. So that's pretty cool. The biggest selling features of this enclosure is that its price, it's under $30 and can even be under $20 on sale, small and lightweight, and it's toolless. And here we have the box. It is focused in Chinese, but it does have English on it. And I have the NVMe and SATA model. And as I mentioned, there is an NVMe only model that's a little bit cheaper as well. They've got a little bit of information in terms of the size that it supports, the total terabytes of 8 terabytes, although oftentimes that's just kind of a general limit. You can usually go past that. And then the general dimensions. We go ahead and open this thing up. We have the enclosure itself, and it's nice. It's got a little bit of like a cool gray or like a blue gray kind of look to it. I kind of like that. We've got the USB-C port on one end with what I think is a status light port there. And then we have the ability to open it here, and that opens up super easy, which is really, really nice to see. And then inside, nothing special, nothing over the top here. This is what keeps it inexpensive, but it works. So we've got that. We've also got a USB-C to USB-C cable, very short cable. Looks like about a foot. No USB-A adapter or anything there. So if you do want to use it on something with USB-A, you are going to have to get some kind of adapter for that. They give you, oh, that's nice to see. They give you two of the toolless mount things there. So in case you lose one or one gets damaged, you got a second one. So that's pretty great. And they give you more than enough thermal pads to use probably for 2 drives or so. But you can remove these and reapply them to another drive. Then we also have a QA stamp there mentioning that this was checked, and I would assume it means checked on June 1st of this year. And then we have the manual. This side is all in Chinese. I don't know if it's Cantonese or Mandarin. And then this side is all in English. Very straightforward. No special frills in the box or anything like that, but that's fine at this price point. Anything that keeps it low cost is really great. So let's go ahead and get the drive installed. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. All right, so we're going to be using my recently reviewed YodaMaster NVMe drive here, 4 terabytes. I had it out, so I figured it's the easiest one to use. I'm also going to show you how to initialize this on the PC afterwards, so keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and put some of these thermal pads on there. It's not easy to do with all of the camera gear covering my face and the drive. I'm trying to look through a display on the camera while doing all of this. It's not easy. I'm trying to keep everything centered. I think we got to put 4 on here. I would say try to focus it on the chips that are on the underside of the tape here, or the sticker. All right, so we got that. We can go ahead and slide it in there. So you want to put it in on an angle. You want to push it in so that the pin colors are no longer visible. That means the connection is good. And now we're going to go ahead and grab one of these little plug looking things. All right, so we've got that. We're going to go ahead, slide it onto the end here like so, and then push it in and it holds on. So that installs very easy. I really like that toolless design. I like that they give you a second one in case the first one falls apart. I really do like these versus something like on my SoKiwi. It has a really annoying tab on the end that is really hard to pull back. It's great that it's toolless, but it's really hard to pull this thing back and have the drive pop out. This is a lot easier because I can easily take this drive out just by lifting it up like that. Like, works really, really well. So that's awesome. And then we just go ahead and slide it back into the enclosure. I got to slide it in the right way. Like so. You should hear it click so that it doesn't push back out. And we are good to go. Now we can go ahead, take our cable. We're going to plug this into the computer. All right, so we've got it plugged into the computer. If we right click on our eject here, we can see that the Acasis is there, but there is no drive. So we have to initialize that drive. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the create and format hard disk partitions. Depending on how many drives you have installed, this may take a little bit to load, so give it some time. And by default, it should prompt you to initialize the drive. If it is a brand new NVMe drive. If you've used it before, it might not. But if this is a brand new drive that you're installing into this enclosure, this should pop up. We're going to go ahead and do it with a GPT. We're going to do disk 11. That's the one that we have here. And it should be good here. So this is going to slowly turn into a basic drive. Now what we can do, we can go ahead and right click on this. We're going to do new simple volume. We're going to make the size the maximum. We're going to put it to letter J. We're going to give it the name Acasis just to make it really easy. We'll do a quick format, sure. We're going to go to next and finish. Once that's done, your folder should open up here, and now we have our J drive. So this is going to work pretty well. Let's do one really quick test. All right, so we're going to do a quick little transfer test. So we're going to be transferring from my editing SSD onto the external enclosure. So let's go ahead. This file is 4 gigabytes. So let's go ahead and do that. Speed-wise, that's pretty good. About 5-6 seconds. Pretty impressive for 4 gigs. It's pretty happy about that. All right, so we're going to run a very quick Crystal Disk Mark test. We're going to run it with the drive practically empty, and we will see how it performs. We'll be back when it's done. So we're back, and I mean, nothing to write home about, but it's doing the job. It's getting really, really close to that 1 gigabit per second or so speed, which we saw in the actual transfer of that file. So it's not doing a bad job whatsoever. And I think for the price, it's performing pretty solid. Now to talk about what you can use an enclosure like this for. You can either use an old replaced or even a brand new M.2 drive that you have, install it in here, and you can have a blazing fast portable drive you can bring around wherever. You can use it to copy drives and do whatever in this enclosure, and then you can install them into a computer, do a whole bunch of stuff, really handy for that purpose. The nice thing about the USB-C to USB-C cable is that you can use this with phones that support USB-C, tablets that support USB-C, laptops, your desktop, portable gaming devices like the Steam Deck and the MSI Claw and the Legion Go and all those. You can even use it with gaming consoles as well, so that's pretty sweet. The final purpose would also be to use it for backups. You can use this to back up a bunch of files, although most people are going to want to use their M.2 drives for something that's constantly being used and you want that speed. So backups probably the lowest priority on this list, but you could use it for that as well. So now let's go ahead and talk about pricing, and the pricing for this is fantastic. As mentioned before, regular price, it is around $26.90 for the NVMe SATA version that I have. For the just NVMe version, it's $23.90, but currently on sale, the NVMe version is $13.90 and the NVMe SATA version is $17.90. So these are well under the $30 mark, sometimes even under the $20 mark. And even on Amazon, through their official store, these are often below $20. So now if we're going to talk about some pros and cons, the first pro is obviously going to be that cost that we just talked about. It's a very, very good price. You know, it being below $30, even usually below $20, I think is a really great deal for something like this. Super handy, it's not going to break the bank, and it's just a really great way to turn a spare NVMe drive, or, you know, turn a new NVMe drive into a great portable drive that you can use wherever. So I think that's great. I use enclosures all the time, probably more than the average person, but they can be really, really handy, especially since so many devices nowadays, especially a lot of laptops, just don't come with a lot of storage. This is a really easy way to bump up that storage and transfer it between devices really easily. The size of this device is great. I think they did a really great job making it so it's not overly bulky. The shape of it being, you know, having the rounded corners does make it a lot nicer to fit in pockets, whether it's in your, you know, pant pockets or in a pocket in a bag or something like that. It doesn't snag, and it just really feels nice, I think, in the hands. It's built pretty well for something that's at this price point as well. And the ease of use is great. As I mentioned, the installation was super easy. Getting this thing in and out is great. It does a very good job of just being super simple to use. It's not overly complex. This rubber plug is going to last a lot longer than a lot of the other plastic solutions, so that's great as well. They give you a spare one just in case. And setting it up is super painless. And it's one that you can easily switch the drives as well. So that's really important for me, for example, because I'm changing the drives on these enclosures all the time. Now, the only real negative is the fact that the cable that comes with it is a little lackluster. It being only a foot is kind of a bummer, especially if you're going to be using this on a desktop, because depending on where your USB-C port is, this may not be long enough for the drive to sit properly on a surface, and it's going to be hanging off of that port. So that is a little bit of a bummer. I do also wish it came with a cable that had a USB-A kind of adapter sleeve, like a lot of the other ones that I've talked about and reviewed before have. It makes it a lot easier to use on more devices. I know that USB-C is becoming much more common, but having the option of that USB-A when needed is super, super handy, and I do wish this had it, and I wish the cable was just a little bit longer. But if my only negative about this enclosure is the cable that you can easily replace or use something else for, that's a pretty good list of, you know, negatives where super minimal. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this drive. I think it's really great. I think the pricing is great, the size is great, the build quality is great. How easy it is to use versus my SoKiwi means that this is probably going to replace my SoKiwi as my super cheap and nimble enclosure, one that I use and just toss in bags and don't really worry about. I don't think it's going to break. It's super small, really easy to bring around, and that ease of use for installing and reinstalling drives in this one versus the SoKiwi means it's going to be replacing it for sure. I think it's a really great drive for the price especially, and it's basically going to be my go-to. Now, if you're interested in checking this drive out, there will be links in the video description if you do want to check it out for yourself. If you do use that link, really do appreciate it. And with all that said, I do hope you found this video helpful. And if not, at least hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can leave those down in the comment section below. Big thanks to my patrons, and big thanks to you for watching to the end of this video. If you do want to see any other videos where I review products like this, you can go ahead and check out the playlist right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.